everyone, I'm Miss Lydia from the Boston Library. Thank you so much for joining us for our Craft Friday project. Today's project involves redesigning old t-shirts. So I have a bunch of oversized old t-shirts that I just haven't gotten rid of, but I never wear them. I'm going to show you some different ways to redesign them. What you'll need to have on hand is a pair of scissors, a ruler, and if you have one, like a metallic Sharpie or something to make some marks so that you can see where you're going to be cutting. It's not necessary, but it's helpful. The nice thing is with cotton t-shirts, they don't fray, so you can cut them and you don't actually have to stitch the hem in order to keep it from fraying, so that's going to work in our advantage. I also have a tank top to use as a template, so the first thing that I'm going to do is lay my t-shirt out nice and flat, and I'm going to use my tank top to lay over a template for my first cut, which is going to be my sleeves. I've taken my tank top and centered it over the neckline here so I can see exactly what I need to cut out of my neckline and my sleeves. So those are going to be the first two cuts that I make. So I'm going to just carefully cut along that line through both layers of the tank top. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is split all the way up the side right on this middle seam here. So I'll go ahead and make my first cut. And remember, you can always cut more off. You can't cut it back on, so you can go a little bit conservative on the first cut. There's that one. You want to try to make sure that as you're cutting, nothing's folded strangely in the back. You'll end up with funny lines there. It is helpful to have very sharp scissors for all of this. Now, after I look at that cut, I can see if there are some ragged edges. I might clean those up too. At this point, I might try it on to make sure that the neckline and the arms look right, and then I'm going to split all the way up the side. So I'm going to go ahead and take from my bottom corner all the way up, trying to get as straight a line as I can. Just like that on the one side, so you can see that goes all the way up. Flip this over and then do the other side. So now I basically have a tunic with open sides. And at this point it becomes a little bit easier too to open it up and clean up your neckline too, because you can kind of see, like there I missed a little bit of my line. But now that I'm not cutting through two layers, I can just clean that up just a little bit there so that that looks a little bit better. And then the next thing I have to do is figure out how many ties I want on the side. So what I'm going to do is cut tabs along both sides and tie those together to make the t-shirt smaller. So I'm going to try it on, and I'm going to see approximately how far I need to bring those ties in to make it so that this t-shirt fits. I'm going to take that measurement, and then I'm going to start cutting strips in horizontally across both sides. And I've figured out that I want to come in approximately 5 inches from either side. So I put a marker there on the one side and also on the other side. And then I've decided I want my strips to be approximately 1.5 inches. So I've gone down the outside of each side and marked 1.5 inch strips. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make sure that my sides are lined up very carefully, and I'm going to start cutting those strips in at 1.5 inches into 5 inches. I'm going to go down both sides doing that. And they don't have to be perfectly straight. The nice thing is that you're going to be tying them so you won't really see if they're a little bit crooked. You just want to make sure that your pieces front and back are lined up. And that you're cutting to approximately the same spot. Now that that's done, I want to point out one other thing, that if the t-shirt is too long, you can always cut off a bit of the bottom. So you just pick out where you want it to end and cut straight across there, knowing that it's going to curl up just a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is, if you take these pieces and take each one individually, hold your thumb towards the inside and pull it. They're going to stretch just a little bit and curl. So I'm going to go down through and I'm going to do that with each piece. Once I've done that, I'm going to go back through and I'm going to tie them into a knot. Go all the way down one side. And then depending on the look that you want to go for, you can also trim them shorter after that. I've gone through and tied both sides. It does definitely help to stretch them before you tie them. It makes it a little bit easier to tie consistently. And because I ended up taking so much off from the sides, I am probably going to go through and trim these up just so that they're not quite so long, so that it drapes a little bit better. And then I'll show you the finished product. Here's the final product after I trimmed up the edges. I would make one recommendation, that I wouldn't trim any of the edges until you try it on, because you may have to retie some of them just to get it to lay flat. I know I had to take the ones up at the top in a little bit. So you can actually, if you want it to be really customized, you can tie them while you're wearing it and then trim the edges after that, because it'll give you a really good fit. So you can see I also had to go back through and trim up my neckline a little bit more just to get it even. So that's the end product of that one, and then I will show you the next. The t-shirt that I'm using for the next one is quite a bit smaller, so I'm not actually going to take anything off of the sides, but I am still going to be making my lines for my tank top. So I'm going to lay this out, try to get it centered. I'm also probably not going to take very much off of the neckline on this one either. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to mark where my tank top line ends, and then bottom of the armpit. And I'm going to try to get a nice smooth line between those two. Now, if you want to be really particular, you could press your t-shirts before doing any of this. It'll give you cleaner lines. I'm not that particular, but it depends on the look that you're going for. So I'm going to go through and cut these off. Now, working from the back, I'm going to come in a little bit closer to my neckline here. So I'm going to go just the other side of the collar, and I'm going to cut a smooth line over. Pretty smooth, little bump there, I'll clean up. Okay, and I'm going to fold this in half and mirror that with the other side. Make sure that everything is lined up and follow that same exact cut on this side. Still working from the back, I'm going to make sure that I only have the back layer, and I'm going to cut right along the collar here. So just below it, making sure that I, again, only have that back layer. You're probably going to end up cutting through your tag, which you can get rid of. So then I have this piece here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this into 3 strips, about to here. So I want to make sure that I'm fairly even. If I measure this, we're looking at about 8 inches, so I'm going to make sure that I mark that off evenly. With my spots marked, I'm going to, again, making sure that I'm picking up only my back layer. I'm going to cut all the way down. Well, I shouldn't say all the way down, about halfway. And then I'm going to take my other strand too. So I now have 3 pieces. Now, as we remember from the last version, we pulled it to make it longer. So I'm going to do the same thing here. But this one I'm going to be fairly aggressive with because I want it to be a lot thinner. So I've pulled those pieces. And then what I'm actually going to do is take them and braid them. So it's helpful if you have something to weigh down the back of it too. When you still have a little bit left on your braid, again making sure that you pull those so that they're nice and long, you can take 2 pieces and tie a knot so that your braid doesn't come undone. And then I'm going to take that 3rd piece, tie, double knot it, my 3rd piece, that longer piece there, and I'm going to take my collar and I'm going to loop it around there and tie it. Now, if you don't want to have this extra material, you can, I know I said this was a no-sew, but you can actually take these 3 pieces and sew them onto your collar so that you don't have this extra knot. So once that's tied on there, it is going to slide from side to side. You can just center that. You can trim up these. And then there's the back of our t-shirt. So you have a regular tank top here in the front, braided back. Hopefully you can see that okay. So here we have our 2 t-shirt to tank top redesigns. You can see the side ties and our braided back. If you have any questions on the process, please comment below. I'll do my best to answer it. I did want to mention, don't throw out those sleeves. They do work, if you trim them up, they'll work as headbands. They also do work as face masks. They don't have, obviously, any filters in them, so if you wanted to add a layer to that, but depending on the size of your t-shirt, they fit pretty well. I hope you enjoyed today's project and tune in next week for another one.